BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Nihal Arthanayake, and this is Headliners. Okay, remember this? Oh, everyone's having a little vibe in the studio here. Yeah, producer Tom is getting right back. Actually, producer Tom was about 1 when this came out, if that, I can imagine. So this came out, I think, it became a hit, certainly in 1985, when I was 14. So that gives you an idea of how old I am. Big tune. And this I absolutely love. I've been listening to this every single day. Come on! This is how you do Elvis. And the video is so weird. Go and check out the video, it's so surreal. Oh, I love this song. Anyway, okay, I think you got the idea now who I'm about to present to you. Last week, I went down to London to catch up with Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe, collectively known, of course, as the Pet Shop Boys. They formed in 1981, 22 UK top 10 hits, 4 number ones, 3 Brit Awards, and they're back with their 14th studio album called Hotspot, their first since 2016. And of course, I started by asking them a fairly obvious question. What's it like to be back?
It's always exciting to put a new album because, a lot of work goes into it. And you're always trying to do something a little bit different and still hope you're going to find some kind of audience for it.
Is it always easy to find the energy to want to do it? Asking Chris.
He's summoning up the energy to answer that.
No, it's something we actually look forward to doing. And it normally comes after having gone on quite a long tour. So, you're raring to go again. The creative juices are just there waiting to flow.
I looked at an interview that you did, I think, like 86 or something in America. And the idea was that you never thought you were going to tour it. You never thought it was going to be a live act.
No, we did. We weren't a live act at the beginning. We came together as songwriters. And that's still the basis of what we do, is being songwriters. Of course. And we were actually, in 1986, when we had the first hit with West End Girls, we did book a tour, but we always had this idea we're going to do a theatrical extravaganza, and we actually met some theatre people, and it was all planned and booked. And then we saw the figures, and it was going to lose £500,000, and in 1986. And we didn't have £500,000 to lose, so we didn't do it. And then went through the same exercise the following year with the same results. We didn't do it. Then finally we did it in 1989 with Derek Jarman directing it.
Wow.
And that's really when we got going.
But there was a tour, I know, was it at the Palladium where you had that amazing visual with the sofas and you said that was losing you like $12,000 a night or something to do that. So you didn't get quite away from
the Savoy Theatre.
Oh, the Savoy Theatre.
Yeah, the Savoy Theatre lost $12,000 a night, and we could have given every member of the audience
a tenner. I think you said.
Yeah, right? At the time. I'm not very good at maths, and but it had a very good effect because our agent William suggested that we did 2 festivals and we'd break even. And we headlined the Roskilde Festival in Denmark, which is the biggest rock festival in Europe, on the Saturday night. And I'd never even been to a festival before, to be honest. And
you surprise us.
You don't see me in a tent, sleeping bag.
Weirdly enough, Neil, no.
The last time I went camping was with the Scouts in 1965. It was a total nightmare, and that was it. I'd got it all out of my system, but I was 10. And I will never go camping. And it was a great success. And we started doing festivals after that. So actually, the loss, like often with these things, turns into a positive. A negative often feeds a positive, I think.
You had an amazing experience at Glastonbury, didn't you, when Muse were on, and you thought, no one's going to come and see us. It's like Muse. And then ends up, you get the same size audience that they had.
Yeah, that was in 2010.
Yeah. 50,000.
We were headlining the other stage, and
Yeah.
they were on the main stage
Yeah.
at exactly the same time. And we thought, no one's going to come and see us. And with that, and when we got there, our stage manager said, well, the official area for the stage is already full. And people kept coming. You could see, when you're on the stage, interesting. You can tell.
I don't know, weirdly enough.
Yeah, well-
I don't know what it looks like for tens of thousands of people turn up to
It's
see
quite
me
amazing,
sing.
50,000 people with flags and things. And you can see them coming, because sometimes you can play a festival and you can see people are drifting away at the edges, going to see someone else. It's a bit annoying. And but they kept coming during that, and it was quite an amazing experience.
I mean, I know you were doing the band while you were a journalist, but how did they feed off each other? I mean, how did journalism help your lyricism at all?
No, there were different things. The reason they asked me to work at Smash Hits was because I was to edit a book, actually. I was a book editor before that. I wasn't a journalist. And so they brought me in to edit a book. And also because they knew I knew a lot about music. So the fact that I was, even then, a sort of songwriter and a big music fan meant I could work at Smash Hits because I knew a lot about music. And the only thing I can ever think of that was of value in terms of what Pet Shop Boys do was we used to print the lyrics of songs in Smash Hits, and the record player was beside my desk where we used to play the records and check the lyrics. And so I must have checked dozens of lyrics. I don't know if that ever fed into lyric writing. That's the only thing I can ever think of, really.
Obviously a love of words, though. Obviously
Yes.
a love of words.
Since
and-
I was a child, yes.
From where?
I've always been a reader. So that's words, isn't it?
Indeed it is. Yes.
And I've always read a lot of history, and I even put lyrics about history into our songs, historical subjects
Yeah.
into our songs.
Good job you didn't study geography, isn't it?
Yeah, you're a big advocate of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, I seem to
Still
be.
am.
Yeah.
Still am. Actually, I'm an advocate of the Ottoman Empire, really.
We used to have an Ottoman.
Did the recording of this album, Hotspot, differ in any way, shape or form from previous outings?
Well, in that we recorded it in Hansa Studios
Right.
in Berlin.
Right.
What we call a proper studio, because nowadays, so often you make your records in rooms in people's houses. It's pretty much how everyone works actually a lot of the time, unless you're a live band, in which case you need a big live room. And we have an apartment in Berlin. We've had it for 10 years. We write songs there, and we go there to write, actually. And we thought we'd make this one a sort of a Berlin album. And so to where David Bowie recorded Heroes, and he worked with Iggy Pop, and Nick Cave and Depeche Mode have worked there, and U2 worked there. And it had an effect on the sound. We used, the last couple of albums have been very kind of digital sounding, I think, really. And this, we used a lot of old analog keyboards, which are unpredictable and difficult to tune, but they have a fatter sound, and I think it changed our sound quite a lot, to be honest.
What do you love about Berlin as a city? Why do you return there to write?
Berlin's a very human city to live in. It's historically interesting, of course. It's very green. It's surprisingly relaxed. There are forests and lakes within the city borders. It's got a good music scene. When you live in a neighbourhood, your neighbourhood has got everything you want, and it's not just a series of chain stores. I think rents are much cheaper, though I think they're getting more expensive.
Yes.
So you get strange, quirky shops where they're hardly ever open sometimes, and you wonder what's going on. And it's a very stimulating environment. And also it would be fun anywhere where they speak a different language, because you just feel sort of freer, because they talk their political, but we can't understand it.
They have a lot of it. They do have a lot.
They do.
They
I know
have
they
a lot
do.
of it as well. Yeah.
But it's a beautiful city. I don't know. It's sort of stimulating.
You're very aware of music. Any bar you go to, there'll be a DJ with a laptop playing music that you've never heard, obscure music. The clubs is sort of legendary, really. And the club that we like to go to, Berghain, you can have fun.
Which is
there
legendary, yeah.
because there's a no cameras rule and things like that. You feel very free in Berlin. You don't feel like you're being watched the whole time. In London, you can feel very. There's a lot of surveillance in London, I think.
Yes, there is, and a lot of camera
although it's
phones.
catching up, Berlin is definitely catching up, because now they've got cameras on the S-Bahn, the U-Bahn that they didn't used to have and stuff like that. So, but there's definitely a sense of freedom in Berlin.
What does hedonism look like now for you two, compared to the 90s.
Well, we aren't
Or the
hedonists.
80s.
Were we ever really?
And we used to, I wouldn't go hedonistic, but we used to go out all the time while doing, like when we first had success, we'd be doing promotion all day long, and then we'd be making a record in the studio at the same time, and then we'd go out for dinner, and then we'd go to a club, and then we'd go back to the studio at 2 a.m, and then start it all over again the next day. And you're sort of amazed by, to be hedonistic takes quite a lot of energy. And we certainly had that for a long period of time. We used to go out clubbing, I think, 4 or 5 nights a week, really. And
I mean, that's not physically or emotionally sustainable, though, is it? I mean, that will take its toll on you.
Oh, but it was fun. I mean, you know, if you're going to be hedonistic, you've got to have the music and everything to go with it. And that was a very fun period for music.
I mean, you could go to the Camden Palace every night,
Yeah.
and the same crowd would be there, wouldn't they?
Yeah, when I was at Smash Hits, used to go out. Probably not Mondays, did it? Or maybe there was a good night.
Monday
There
was
a good
Busby's.
night. Yeah, that's right. And now I'd go out pretty much every night, weekday, because I was on expenses as well.
Oh, someone else's money.
Someone else's
Yes.
money. And say, bought a drink for George Michael, £5, that kind of thing. And I used to buy loads of American imports on expenses because it was music. And it was, actually, I loved working at Smash Hits. It was great. But that was actually, hedonism sounds a bit Freddie Mercury-ish, which I've never lived that sort of life. But it was, nonetheless, it was pleasure-seeking and pleasurable.
Is it having success come later, do you think?
Yeah,
influenced
I think
that?
that's a very good point. I mean, when Western Girls went and won our first hit, I was 31. Now, most people, pop stars age 31, are facing the end of their career, not the beginning of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Harry Styles won't be 31 for another, I don't know how old he is, 4 or 5 years, something like that, I think.
Right.
And he's already lived a whole pop life, really. And so I was quite old, and I'd worked, had a proper job. That's anathema to most pop musicians. And well, even though they work very hard at their music.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of in that kind of routine of work.
So then the opportunity arrives.
We were famous
Yeah.
for going to clubs and observing everything. We were these two strange people that just used to stand in the corner whilst everyone else was having a party.
Why?
I don't know. Too shy. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, shyness. This is before we were famous, of course.
Yeah. But then once you become famous, everybody wants a piece of you.
I guess we don't really see it like that. I don't think we've ever regarded ourselves, lived our lives as famous people. It always takes me by surprise. We're both the same. We both walk a lot, get the tube, go to the supermarket and all the rest of it. And that's a really important thing that feeds what we do, I think, in a way. To experience life at ground level I think it's really important.
But it's amazing.
Otherwise, you just sort of get a bit detached,
But it's amazing you're allowed to do that, because people like George Michael or Elton, they just wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, that's because their persona, they've both George and Elton, George sadly no longer with us, of course.
Yeah, of course.
They created George Michael and Elton John out of someone with a Greek name and Giorgio Thingamapoo and Reginald White and all the rest of it. So they've created personas to cope with being pop stars, because I think they're both quite shy people. And I suppose doing that sort of removes you a bit. Actually, George Michael was always out and about, though. I mean, when I was partying every night at Smash Hits, or going clubbing every night, he'd always go to George Michael and Andrew, actually.
He was on your receipts.
He was on my receipts.
Just bought a sandwich.
He was finer.
Bought drink for George Michael and Andrew originally. See, they were always quite impressed you'd done that, though. It was good. You might get a bit of gossip out of it. Yes, so I don't know. We're just not like that, really.
But I guess Chris has, though, hasn't he? You've built up this which is that I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to stay very much in the background. That's in itself or it's just an extension of who you are.
No, I've always had one of those faces that people used to annoyingly come up and say, why are you in such a bad mood?
Don't worry, it might never happen.
It's really annoying, but I've just got one of those looks. I've always had that, really. Don't come near me. Don't approach.
Do you see pop music very much as art?
No, I think it can be art. I think you can do the whole thing in the video, and can be art, but I think the motive is maybe slightly different. And it's commercial art. That's the reality. It's commercial art. And commercial art can be art.
Of course.
I mean, Andy Warhol started off as a commercial artist.
Even
shoes.
bad art is art.
Bad art is still
With
art.
a great piece of graffiti in Manhattan we saw a few years ago.
But to ask questions, art is to ask questions of perhaps the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And in that respect, does pop have a place in asking questions of the world we live in?
Yes, there's a tendency nowadays for it to be the pop artists asking themselves questions about themselves because it's very narcissistic. I think pop music is now really a branch of social media. Really, it's how it's consumed a lot of the time, and where
to sell tracksuit lines.
We're a different generation than that, where self-expression is important. But at the same time, you still want it to be sort of beautiful and catchy and danceable. And it has, if you look at its functions, it has quite a lot of functions, really, pop music. And you're sort of balancing all of those things.
So why is it that you, in your lyricism, will be less about introspection and more about the world that you see around you?
I might be about introspection, but I might also present the introspection as being someone else's introspection.
Yes.
But that also I might not be doing that. It might really be about someone else's introspection. I think it's assuming a persona, like Elton does, if it is a persona. Of course, he doesn't write the lyrics.
Bernie Taupin.
I think Billy Talent probably does assume personas then. And it's very liberating to imagine you're a woman married with 2 children and write a song about it. And I like doing that. I like writing through other characters, not in a Ziggy Stardust way, but just in an everyday way to imagine, to look at people, watch people's lives and sort of imagine you are them. I find that quite liberating because I probably don't find myself interesting enough to write 14 albums about. I mean, you have to be very self-obsessed to do that.
But
nowadays, people are surprised that when you don't write about yourself.
Yes.
And I think that's slightly ridiculous, really. I mean, if you look at Bob Dylan or someone who's made a lot more than 14 albums, they're not all about him. He again tells stories, assumes characters, writes impressionistic poetry. I mean, I think that's great. That's kind of what I want to do as well.
But do we have a right as listeners of Pet Shop Boys to think we know you through the music, that we understand your emotional state because of the songs that we've listened to over the years, or that's just not the purpose of it for you?
Not necessarily. I mean, that will be there sometimes, but not necessarily.
But it's shrouded in the sense that, like you rightly say, nowadays songwriters will be, this is me and my broken heart and what I've been through and I'm wearing my scars, etc. Never got that sense that you wanted to take it there.
People think that's authentic now, that that's what it should be about. And I don't see it like that. I mean, I think it's like writing fiction. You can write fiction, you can write non-fiction. And writing songs is writing fiction, really. You can put something of yourself in it, but it's not necessarily just about you.
Do you ever watch singing competitions on TV? Have you ever seen any of them?
I've seen bits. I'm not a huge fan of it. There's this new one, isn't there?
The Masked Singer.
I watched about 10 seconds of that and I thought, well, I just don't get this.
Have you seen The Masked Singer?
No, I haven't. I've heard that Justin from the Darkness was in it, though.
Yes.
Yes.
I thought
good choice.
I can't remember what he was dressed as. I don't think he wasn't a tree. The former
Has it come from Japan, this program?
South Korea.
South Korea.
South Korea
Right, okay.
was the format. Then it went to America, and now it's come here. And there's people, one's dressed. So the former footballer Teddy Sheringham was a giant tree,
Can he sing?
you know. And singing. No, he can't.
Oh, he can't
No,
sing.
no, not at all.
Right.
Not at all. And I wonder from a theatrical perspective, you know, if the Pet Shop Boys were approached to say, we want you to do a talent show, what that would look like.
What would we be producing it?
You would be coming up with the concept, I'm going to do a talent show. What would it be? Because the Masked Singer's already gone, so you can't get people dressed up as giant trees and chameleons yet.
I think, to give a boring answer, we wouldn't be doing
I know
this.
you wouldn't. That's why I asked it. There's no way in a million years either of you would want to do that.
I was asked if I'd like to be considered to be a judge on X Factor, and whether I'd like to be considered to be a judge on American Idol. Yeah, and I had a surreal conversation with the production team in Los Angeles on the phone. There would be a flyover. I refused to fly over. That's how I talked to them. And then I watched it. They had to send me a DVD in those days. And I thought, no, I could never be on this.
Why?
I think, and when Boy George started doing some of those things, I thought it was a good idea because he's got the gift of the gab and he's got strong opinions.
As if you haven't.
I would probably think, well, I really
Chris is just
hate that.
I know. Neil denies that he's opinionated.
But no, I worry that my opinions would be unacceptable. But I would just say that's totally boring. Nothing. You should give up.
Which makes amazing television. though.
Because they like that.
Yes, they do.
When I had the interview on the phone about American Idol, they said, "But Neil, that's what we like. You have such strong opinions." And anyway, I didn't do it, obviously.
What do you think of that the Instagram culture, the fame culture that is now? Considering what in the 80s there was that kind of global superstardom that you could be, but now everybody, as Andy Warhol predicted, presumably has actually less than 15 minutes. Does it excite you in any way, shape, or form? Does it terrify you?
It's the way it is.
Yeah.
I think, broadly speaking, it's unhealthy. And the reason I think that is because I think it promises something that it can't deliver. So it promises that in music industry terms, you can leave your comments on someone's Facebook page, Instagram page, all that stuff, Twitter, and it sort of assumes that someone cares what you think. Reality is they don't care what you think. It's a marketing thing to let you know about the new single or album or something, or the gigs. And it gives the impression that it's somehow democratic. And if you think about it, it can't be democratic. You might listen to people's opinions about something practical, but creatively it can't be really democratic. And I think then people find it frustrating. That's why you notice so much ill temper on all social media. Maybe that's even the primary function of social media, to let people express their anger at people not paying attention to them.
But we live in an ill-tempered age, don't we?
I think
generally.
I think because of social media.
Oh, do you think it is?
No, I think social media. I think historians of the future will actually be able to divide the world into before and after social media. Because the reality is, only very recently, remember Facebook only started
it's not long ago.
15 years ago or something, less I think.
Yeah.
And
Twitter's way less than that.
Twitter.
Yeah, it's about 10 or 11, yeah.
There was a time when people didn't attempt to communicate with each other like that. And also people didn't live their lives as though they were sort of celebrities. I mean, when you see people taking assuming those expressions, looking up to take a selfie.
Yeah.
It's in their head, they're like a film star or something, which is great, but it's not going to be good for their self-esteem because they're not. It's not really going anywhere. Of course, we have all these, nonetheless, people who are, TikTok stars and all the rest of it, influencers, and that's new, isn't it? That's all new. It's all new, so it's kind of fascinating. At the same time, I'm not denying it's not fascinating, but I don't think it makes people happy. In fact, I think it makes people unhappy.
So is the studio your favourite place, or is it being in Berlin writing is your favourite place?
No, it's probably in the studio. Yeah, it's probably in the studio.
It's fun making the record with Stuart as well. I mean, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't underestimate how much fun that is working with Stuart, because he's very, very funny, very talented, very quick. And that's really very, very enjoyable.
The beat in Wedding in Berlin is so good. That I'm so in that song. I was listening to it on the train on the way down. I just wanted to be in a rave.
It's meant to be like a wedding in a in Berghain, quite specifically.
Have you ever seen such a thing happen? Is it possible to get married in a big techno club in Berlin? Well, if you pay them enough money, it's possible to do anything.
I don't know, of course. But it was written for a friend's wedding. I'm not familiar with the local regulations about where you can get married.
With the producer.
Although you probably could in England, couldn't you?
Yeah. It's a beautiful song.
Well, it's by Mendelssohn, it should be.
yes, yeah, true. You have remixed Mendelssohn.
We haven't given him a credit, but anyway.
Oh, it's out of copyright. You won't have to pay any of the publishing on that. What are your? I mean, these are one of these obvious questions, but what are the track from Hotspot that you find yourself gravitating back to time and time again that you've listened to the most?
I quite like the whole album, actually.
Well, it's nice to know.
Yeah,
that'd be a terrible sell.
The great thing about it is it's 42 minutes long, so you can listen through to it. It's not one of these albums like 19 tracks like you get nowadays all the time, where you never ever get to the end of Madam X or something, which I think is a shame, because I think the album's improved when you edit it down. We could make a 19-track album, no problem. But I don't think anyone would listen to it all the way through. And I just get, if I do listen to it, I get into the flow of it, really. There's a song that I do like a lot, though, called Hoping for a Miracle, which I like the melody particularly. And also I like, it's kind of what a lot of, we probably all do, hope something incredible is going to happen to us. Sometimes people can feel desperate, and they're just, I even know people like that. They're sort of hoping for a miracle.